the expressiveness of the body, and the divergence of Greek and Chinese medicine, we come across the importance of visual knowledge in actually perceiving the body. For both Greek and Chinese doctors, they agreed on actually analyzing the visual appearance of the human body and translating it into a specific message for the overall patient. However, I believe from the reading that Chinese medicine actually engaged in more of an intense sort of delving into the actual visual appearance of the person, and they kind of had more of a complexity in terms of analyzing specific colors that were reflected off of a person, essential to analyzing the human body. It was ultimately interactions between the Wujing, which was the 5 phases, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, and the colors that were the Wu Se, the 5 colors being green, red, yellow, white, and black. Just looking at a person's face, doctors could know the phase that ruled in the illness, according to Kuriyama. For example, if you had more of a yellowish tint, you could tell it was a result of the waxing of the earth. So ultimately, it was related to balancing these sort of phases within the body that reflected the actual expression upon the face. Complex to understand the definition of because it is variable and there is multitude of definitions to describe exactly what is, but it's not just the visible color as we've been describing previously, but it's also just the expression. It's translating what you visually see and kind of decoding that message that is encrypted within the face through a series of colors into a sort of diagnosis. I'm going to use the word diagnosis loosely because that wasn't a huge emphasis in Chinese medicine. It was ultimately viewing patterns within the body, and that could be told through just gazing upon and identifying the of a person. But looking at the face and identifying particular colors was only part of what we need to understand what is. I think Kuriyama extends into talking about how can relate to our perceptual desires. Specifically on page, I believe, 176, he talks about how the craving for is strongest. He relates to Confucius talking about how a person that is fond of virtue as he is of beauty, which is also a relation to and that human nature consists in the appetite for food and sex, which is also a form of So beauty and desires are, in a sense, a description of what could possibly be. I think this quote on also page 176 is really interesting. It talks about how wasn't just what the eyes could or should perceive, but it's what they wanted to see. So it's almost sort of alluring as to what could possibly be. I think an also interesting interpretation of what could possibly mean, it could possibly mean the spirit of your face. For example, someone that might be 70 years old, they might be of old age. However, their spirit and their complexion can often represent one that is very young. So that could be the expression of their face. Interesting parallel to that of Greek medicine is that they did regard the different tinges of the face as a form of expression in terms of their character. For example, the color of a coward was considered always changing. However, the color of one that is brave never necessarily changed. So there's a sort of consistency in terms of someone that is more brave and confident, and there's sort of an inconsistency in the color and expression and the vividness of the face. Not least, I thought this analogy of sa being expressed in a person to that of a plant blossoming was quite interesting. On page 190, Kuriyama explains that humans resemble plants, not just in their vegetative sort of process, but um, in the way that humans grew and revealed themselves as person. So, sort of their morality and sort of their um, values and intentions was almost analogous to that of a flower blooming. So, a person that was manipulative and was ultimately bad kind of was almost like a wilting flower, but those that were very radiant and very virtuous was a much more blossoming type of flower. And I thought that was a very interesting analogy to come across.